Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my talk. Today I'm going to be talking about the issues I faced when making a game engine for the PSP. Because I decided to make a game engine for the PSP for no particular reason. And I'm sure this is like the 7 billionth open source game engine made for the PSP, so let's just get on with it. But first, who am I? My name's Andrew. Online I go by Slashed. I don't have some sort of like stacked portfolio or anything. I just like programming in my free time. And for some context, I used to do a lot of front-end development, but recently I started working a lot with lower-level languages. Okay, and I just want to do another quick overview. Like, I'm sure everyone knows this who's watching this already, but I want to do a quick overview of the hardware that I'm working with. So this is the first iteration of the Sony PSP, the Model 1000, and then later on, Sony dropped, oh, my bad. Yeah, so we have a 40 by 272 LCD, and we have a 333 megahertz MIPS CPU and 32 megabytes of RAM. And then later on, Sony dropped the Model 2000 and 3000. And the most important difference in these models is that we have 64 megabytes of RAM. Um, right, so what about actually making the game engine? I'm going to give everyone a question to ponder on. What would the ideal game engine for an older console look like? Now, if you ask me, I would say something like Godot or Unity, but it would just compile to the older platform. And this is kind of what I tried to replicate with my game engine. Before I start my long spiel about how my game engine works, I want to show everyone a fun fact about my game engine. The variant I will be talking about today is actually like the third rewrite of this game engine. And when I originally started working on it like a long time ago, I did not know any C++. It's got some footage of the older version. Now, this version was really bad. It was really badly structured, and that's why I had to do a rewrite. I mean, you can just imagine the worst piece of code you've ever seen, and that's pretty much this. So because of this, I knew that I had to plan out the structure of my game engine really well before starting work on it. So let's talk about the structure. Personally, I've always liked how Unity works in regards with entity component system. Now, in an entity component system, you have entities which have components. And then you have the system part, which gets you a specific entity, among other things. However, when you're developing for such an old system, you kind of don't have the spare CPU cycles you need for that, so I actually don't have the system part. So we can just call it an entity component, I guess. So then let's take a look at how I did this in my game engine. So I call them nodes. I call entities nodes because it sounds cool. And they have a name and they have an array of children and an array of components. Probably the more important thing of nodes is how does the game loop work with nodes? So we probably want some lifetime functions. That's kind of critical. So let's add some. So we have update, initialize, and exit. This isn't exactly the code that's used, but it's kind of like a pseudocode version so that everyone understands. So let's take a look at the component struct that I use. So it's basically, it has the same component functions, lifetime functions, that the node does. And we also want a way to link back to the node. Using this structure, I created a sprite component. And would you look at that? It's the first ever screenshot of Calamity Engine, and I decided to call it that because it sounds cool. This kind of when I started development on it, it was in like January, I think. Let's talk about the node tree really quick. In Calamity Engine, every window has a root node, and this root node contains every other node in the game. Now, if you guys remember the lifetime functions I mentioned earlier in my node, those are recursive. So if we want to exit the game, for example, we can tell the window I want to exit the game, and that will call the exit function on the root node. And then the root node will call the exit function on every other child that it holds. Now that we have this concept straight, I want to talk about the big pain in my ass, which was making two nodes rotate together properly. Let's go back to the node. Of course, we want some position, rotation, and scale data, right? So let's make a transform class. So we have a regular transform and a global transform. Now, what should we put in this transform class? Well, when I started working on my game engine, I didn't really know much about making game engines. So this was my solution. Now, if you're keen-eyed, you can probably already spot the problem here. The issue I was facing was that child nodes were not rotating correctly around their parent node, like this. And the reason this was happening is because I didn't know I was supposed to use a transformation matrix to represent the scale and rotation of a node. I really don't know how much time I spent trying to make the matrix-less version work, because for some reason I was really scared of matrices. This is a transformation matrix, by the way. Turns out they're not really that hard to use, and eventually I got it working correctly. Would you look at that? Another video. So another big head scratcher for me was serialization in scripts. Let's talk about scripts first. In Calamity Engine, scripts are a really simple wrapper around components. And honestly, the script class probably shouldn't even exist because it's literally just a component class, but it's fine. Anyways, with this class, you can make a script like this. So this code would sit in a header file. And as you can see, we're inheriting the script class, and we're overriding the logic of the lifetime functions. We're overriding the logic of them, right? It's our own logic. And this is very similar to how Godot or Unity would handle these scripts. And since scripts are just components at the end of the day, we can add them to a node like this. So we have the node and we can add the component, which is our script. So let's talk about serialization and deserialization. And it's one of the most important things you can have in a game engine. Now, doing serialization in C++ on your own isn't really fun. It's not the most fun idea. So one of my friends actually introduced me to this library. It's called Serial. And the pitch for this library is that it handles everything related to serialization for you. But to serialize a class, you must add some logic to it, related to it. So you have the save and load function. And I mean, you don't really have to understand how it works, but I don't really need to either. But basically, you have control over the data that you want to serialize and deserialize, or save and load. And because of this, we have this level of control. But when I was implementing scripts, I was really scratching my head because the user defines the data in the script class. And I was like, well, how do I know what data the user defines? And we have to take a step back to look at this because Unity and Godot, they're running on modern hardware and they have modern language features and stuff. And what I mean by this is that, Godot has GDScript. It controls the language. It knows. Unity has C#. It also kind of controls the language. It also knows. We do not at all. We don't have any of that stuff. We have C++. I mean, for us, the game, for me, the game compiles along with the game engine. So we don't have a way to look at that stuff. And I was pretty stumped until I realized I could just make the user do it. And what do I mean by this? Is I just make the user define the save and load functions. Because if you think about it, I guess you could say this is a bit more annoying to do, but you have a level of control that you kind of want on this kind of system, on this kind of platform. Because maybe you don't want to save everything or load everything that you save. So overall, I think this is a good thing. And here's another video, this time of deserialization working. I'm loading these nodes that are spinning from a JSON file. Okay, let's talk about documentation. Because nobody really tells you how to write documentation. I guess it's kind of a silly thing to presume that there are resources online about, because, imagine a documentation website telling you how to write documentation. But, Godot is actually a really good resource for this kind of stuff. Like, Godot documentation is really good. So I just kind of inspired myself from that. And here are some things I learned. So number one, you want to cover everything. If you're writing documentation for a class, you want to speak about everything in that class. And then number two, we want a lot of code examples. So my approach to this was to have both a lot of code examples in the documentation and to have a lot of interactive examples that the user can play around with, so that they can learn how to put those concepts in practice. And I actually managed to get these examples to run on the web with mscripten. It was a bit of a pain because mscripten is always a bit of a pain, but I'm happy I got them to work. And now because we're talking about mscripten, let's talk about actually making the cross-platform game engine cross-platform. So let's go back to the first ever screenshot of Calamity Engine. You need to look closer. So as you can see, it is running on PPSSPP. And this is because originally, I made it so you could only build it for a PSP. Later on, I realized that debugging on PPSSPP, I don't want to do that. So I made it build natively for Linux. And this is still a really early version of the game. So as you can see, it's because the nodes still don't rotate correctly around one another. And also it's running on my phone on Termux. That's why it's running so bad. And then, I made it run on the web using mscripten. And as much as I like saying that mscripten is bad, there is something that is much, much worse than mscripten. And I mean, I want you to imagine the worst developer experience possible that you could ever have. Mscripten doesn't hold a candle to this. Mscripten likes to complain about some really specific stuff, or just doesn't want to compile sometimes. But hearing the name of this compiler strikes fear into my spine. MSVC. I don't think you want to hear the things I would rather do than put up with MSVC for one more second. But instead, I can tell you why I hate MSVC with all of my heart. So let me ask you this. Would you rather do your cast like this, or your cast like this? Well, with MSVC, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice at all, because if you do C-style casts, it blows up. It doesn't want to compile. And on Windows, you have to build every vendor library yourself, because you can't really install a library easily on Windows. So that means compiling a game on Windows will take like 4 times the amount of time it would take to compile normally. Okay, let's slander another homebrew SDK, because obviously the PSP one is the best. We can all agree on this. So Calamity Engine depends on some libraries such as SDL3. We have Serial, Box2D, and SPDlog. The thing is, I would rather have the user not compile these vendor libraries when they're doing with the homebrew SDK. I would just rather not have them compile them at all. Unfortunately, on some platforms, that's not possible. But usually, homebrew SDKs for consoles, they have some sort of package manager to solve this issue. So DevKit ARM, which is the 3DS homebrew SDK, it has a package manager too, but unlike PSP SDK, I think they forgot how to use the merge button. 23 open pull requests. Nice. So I had to make my own Pacman repository just to add 3DS support. And after struggling to get every single dependency to compile properly on the 3DS, guess what? SDL3 on the 3DS only supports software rendering. So that means every game with more than 2 sprites on the screen runs at like 15 FPS. Here's an image of the platformer example running on my PSP. It's a Model 2000. One more thing. And you're gonna have to bear with me for a second. So I want to talk about this thing called Hack Club. They're a non-profit company from America, and they run these online programs for teenagers where if you just work on your personal projects and log what you're doing, they give you prizes. And I guess this is kind of like a sponsorship disclosure, but Calamity Engine was enrolled into one of these programs. So as you can see here, I logged like everything. I guess if I wasn't participating in this program, it would have been a lot harder to make this talk, because I wouldn't have had this documentation about my game engine. I'm really thankful for them existing, because from working on Calamity Engine, I managed to get a Framework 12. Here's proof. And as you can see, I also like stickers a lot. They have a lot of stickers that they give you. And right now, they're running their biggest program yet. It's called Stardance, in partnership with NASA, AMD, and GitHub. And you can fact check me too. Here's NASA's website talking about it. And then here's AMD's website where they talk about it. And the reason I'm talking about this is because this is a great opportunity for anyone who's under 18. And I want a lot of people to know about this. I'm not being paid or anything. If you're under 18 and you like programming, you should definitely check them out. You should scan this QR code. they have a community of really passionate people about this stuff. So thank you for listening to me ramble. I have a QR code of the website for my game engine up there. There's like examples and everything's documentation. And I guess I would be thankful if somebody would check it out and decide, hey, I want to make a game using this. Who knows? Maybe somebody will recreate Space Station 13 on the PSP. That would be kind of cool. One day maybe I'll get to see a cool game made with my game engine. But thing I ask is, does anyone have any questions?
And while we let the chat go ahead here, thank you so much for giving this presentation. I know a lot of people in the chat were really excited with all the different transitions that you had, alongside of some people having done Hack Club themselves.
Yeah, let me check out the chat.
There is like one question about does the 3DS SDL3 does only software rendering? I think that's just more of a question though.
Yeah, it only does software rendering. It's really weird. And I don't think I want to implement it myself really. I don't know any of the 3DS homebrew stuff, and I do plan to get this game engine out on more platforms. I want to get it basically wherever SDL3 compiles. I think it's possible to get it. PS2, for example, that's one. Original Xbox, Xbox 360, whatever.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, thank you for having me to the talk. Thank you.
Yeah. Where do we ask questions in the chat? You ask questions in the chat. You can also ask them on the Discord if you've joined. That should be in the description as well. What do you think is the hardest thing you got through making the game engine that you won't be able to avoid anymore?
Won't be able to avoid it anymore.
Yeah,
So that's
I think is there anything that you like skipped that now you need to do? I think.
Oh, audio, because when I made the original version of the game engine, I was using SDL2 Mixer, and I don't like SDL Mixer at all. I probably because I don't really know how to use it. And I have to do audio now. One thing I also had to do, I didn't talk about it, but originally you were only able to have one window in the game engine, but when I had to port it over to the 3DS, I had to implement multiple windows, and that was a bit annoying to implement because I had to like split everything up. And also I see somebody ask if I aim for a 2D engine, 2D or both. It's only 2D. It's only 2D generally because I mean I'm not big into 3D. Like I don't know any of the rendering APIs for 3D stuff at all. So it's just generally just 2D.
Yeah, I see. And then for the 3DS, there was a suggestion of using Citro 2D. But yeah, Citro is pretty low level as well. So you might as well just also learn to use Citro 3D at the same time. In which point you're learning the entire 3D stack.
Yeah. I guess I was told by a couple of people, my friends, that I should probably have like multiple render backends, like I should just use OpenGL straight up. But the issue is it's like so tightly integrated with SDL, I can't really do the switch now.
I see. Yeah, I'm not sure how SDL and native like GL compat is on other platforms other than the PSP, but I think it generally works decently on the PSP. Waiting for a couple more seconds, but if there's no more questions, thank you so much for giving a live presentation at this year's PSPHDC, and we hope to see you in the future.
Me too.